Hey everyone, welcome back to another Supra video. So last video we went ahead and got the downpipe made for the car, and I made mention in it that I'm recirculating the wastegates. So let's do that this video. So I went ahead and I made these two little stubs that are coped to fit 5-inch tubing, and I went ahead and I marked out a location for 1 and 2 of those tube stubs. So I have my locations for them. I'll go ahead, I'll pull the downpipe out, and I can get the holes cut, get those stubs put on the downpipe, and then we can start building the recirculation tubes from there. Alright, as you saw, went ahead and got the recirculation provisions put on the downpipe, so let's take a look at them. And there they are right there. And I also went ahead and I put the flanges on the wastegates. So now, what usually ends up being the most difficult portion of doing recirculated wastegates is complete. So the next order of business, obviously, is to take these locations and to make them match up to these locations. So I believe I'm going to take front to front, and, or I guess this one to this one, and take this wastegate to the rear provision there. So let me go ahead, I'll take the 2-inch U-bends that I have, and I'll cut one of them into 2 90s, and that'll give me an idea of where to start with and where to go from there. And there's the first dump tube. Came out nicely. Plenty of clearance for the other one. And have my nice flex bellows there to help with expansion and contraction. So now the first one's done, we can move on to the second one. So this one might be a little bit trickier, as it seems like there's a little bit less space to make this happen, but I still do have this plane of rotation right here, so I can rotate that wastegate as it needs to be. But all right, let's go ahead and get rocking on the second one. And with that, we have both of the recirculation tubes done for the wastegates. So a couple notes I wanted to make. When you're putting these things together, always be sure to put a flex bellow or some sort of a flex section in there. I like the bellows because they're less likely to come apart than your normal braided steel or braided stainless flex sections. But reason for this is it allows for expansion and contraction of these tubes as they heat and cool without running the risk of fracture, rather. The second point is, as you saw, these tubes are removable. And the way that I like to do it is to put a V-band assembly on the stub that goes into the downpipe, and it makes it a little bit easier to get the downpipe in and out if the dump tubes are still removable, like you would have with a normal atmospheric dump. So now that these are complete, I think there is one other thing I want to do in this video, and that is to tie the aluminum exhaust into the stainless downpipe. Now, we'll do that tomorrow or one of the upcoming days. As you can see, it's getting dark out, and it's about time for me to get out of the shop for the day. But we'll catch back up then and get rocking on that exhaust. And we are back and going to work on the exhaust today. So, if you remember from the video when we built the downpipe, we now have to connect the aluminum exhaust up to the end of the downpipe there. So, in looking at it a little bit, I think if I hold this in position, I'll have to make a cut either on this weld or this one here. So I may end up splitting the difference between the two, because that's the best of both scenarios, right? But make that cut, and then I have this 5-inch 90-degree aluminum bend here that will be the linking piece, that will serve as the linking piece between that exhaust and the downpipe. So let me mark this out, drop the exhaust down, make a cut, and we'll keep going from there. Kind of a funny thing to note, if you look on the inside of the aluminum section that I cut off, and I guess the whole exhaust for that matter, but if you see all this whiteness on the inside of it, that's from all of the race gas that used to go through the car when it was running before. So I ended up, as you see, I cut the entire bend section off of this, and the reason for that is having as much bend as I do there, it gives me the opportunity to fix this nice dent that happened in the exhaust, which happened right after I constructed it when I initially put it together. So that leaves me a blank slate once I beat this back round again, and I can replace one pie cut section, less welds, less chance of a failure there, and should end up being an overall better piece. So get this out of the vise here, I'll beat that back round, and then can put it back up in the car and start mocking up from there. Okay, I went ahead, I cut that 90 up and have 145 in there, and have the other 45 in my hand. So it looks like we're actually pretty close. I know it might not look like it on camera, but we're pretty close to that being the correct angle to make that work. So I need to take some material off of one of these pieces, and the easiest to do probably will be this 45, as I do have it in my hand and I don't have to contend with a V-band flange to put it in the bandsaw. So I'll go ahead and take a little cut off of this piece and see where we end up. And after some grinding and cutting and fitting, we have the second bend fit up in here. So as you can see, it fits pretty nicely. All that needs to be done now is to mark out on the V-banded section, or the section with the V-band rather, up there, do some little notations on this seam right here. Then I can drop it down, I can weld that section up, mark it onto its location on the full exhaust, and that can be welded, and then we can get to finally mounting the muffler. I have the exhaust up underneath the car in front of me here. Let's take a look at ground clearance. So, come down underneath, adjust my camera here. There we go. And there is plenty. So you can see the tires are flat. These, the skinnies on this thing, they don't hold air very well, so rather than fill them up, I figured I'd leave them deflated, both to be lazy and to give it worst case scenario. And the way that it is, we have still, looks like 3 inches worth of ground clearance with flat tires. So by the time that you get air in them, it raises the car up however much it does there, should be good to go. So I'm going to pull the exhaust back off, weld the final seam on the front of it, and then we can start looking at the rear of it. And we have the exhaust up in there. So it's a little bit tight right here. I might end up having to do some hammer work, but not a big deal. And pretty damn solid. So come out back here, we have the point of contention with the muffler. And to get the clearance that I want for the muffler to the fuel cell, you can see the exhaust has to drop quite a ways. So what I'll likely do is make a cut on this weld right here and either angle this section down. Since it is miter cut, I might be able to do that, or just replace this section in its entirety. Not quite sure yet, but we'll see here in a minute once the exhaust comes down and can get that cut and look at it more. Alright, as you saw, got the exhaust all wrapped up, and still have to figure out the hanger in the rear here, but it's at least zip tied in place for the time being. It does have clearance to the fuel cell, but I may end up having to take a notch out of it. I haven't entirely decided what I want to do about that just yet, but we have an exhaust back up on the car. So I think that is going to about wrap it up for this video. Got a decent amount done on a couple different projects for it. But until next time, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and we'll see you then.